Welcome to a brand new episode of In the Slot, all things Steelers. Let's go. All right, we got a great episode for you today. We got Jerome Bettis said what? Most likely breakout, Eli Heidenreich or Kaden Wetjen. Mason Rudolph's status for 2026 in question. Acrisure Stadium continues its makeover, Heinz Field. We'll talk the Steelers' biggest draft miss in the last 5 years. And then we'll end with a really fun question of the day, and it involves Antonio Brown. You're in the slot with Joseph James. I play college football for a Division I program for about 37 seconds, which makes me your pseudo-expert analyst. Let's go. All right, first topic of the day is Steelers Hall of Fame running back Jerome Bettis. Recently said, if the Steelers can win the division, I expect them to make a sizable dent in the playoffs. So let's talk about this. Do I agree with 3-6 Jerome Bettis? Can the Steelers make a sizable dent in the playoffs? And I think he's 100% right. So you talk about the Steelers' problems the last few years. It's been lack of offense, lack of offensive creativity, not using the middle of the field. We've now flipped it on its head. Mike McCarthy is good at all of those things. They bring in an actual defensive coordinator, no more of one of Tomlin's buddies running the defense. We bring in an actual defensive coordinator who did a lot with a very little in Vegas with the Raiders. And so I think if the Steelers stay healthy, they do get into the playoffs, they win 10, 11, 12 games, somewhere in that range. I actually believe that. They can get into the playoffs and make some noise. Look, Aaron Rodgers is on the farewell tour. He is hungry to win it one more time, and he's back with his coach that he won it with, Mike McCarthy. I think Jerome Bettis is absolutely right. It's a matter of staying healthy and how much the Steelers' defense will look different. They're going to continue to run that 3-4 base package that they've always ran under Tomlin and Cowher, but it's going to look different because Patrick Graham likes to move pieces around. You're going to see T.J. Watt move around. You're going to see Jalen Ramsey be used in a little bit different of a way. He's going to be more versatile. And then you add Jamel Dean on the outside paired with Joey Porter. This is a really, really good secondary with a great pass rush. So talk about Herbig, Highsmith, TJ Watt. That defense is really, really good on paper. No one's talking about. They're being slept on. The Steelers' defenses look good on paper in the past under Tomlin, but they've always underperformed. So I see them having a really big year. Again, key is going to be staying healthy, protecting Rodgers. I think the run game is going to be great. Look out for Rico freaking Dowdle. I think he has more yards than Jalen Warren this year. So really excited. I agree with JB. Let's move on to the next one. Most likely breakout, Eli Heidenreich, the Steelers' 7th-round pick, the local boy, the 7th-round pick, the favorite, or Kaden Wetjen. Great question. So it's Eli or Kaden. Who's the bigger breakout candidate? And I think if you're looking from a strictly offensive standpoint, it is Eli out of Navy. He put up, I think, like 2,000 career yards receiving. He definitely has a much bigger resume than Kaden Wetjen does, but if you're looking actual strict impact, it's Wetjen. He was taken in the 4th round for a reason. This guy is a return specialist. They're looking to invigorate special teams. Danny Smith isn't here anymore, sad face, but Kaden Wetjen, if he does what he did in college, is going to bring some freaking juice to the kick return and punt return units. Kaden Wetjen is going to be on the field more. Eli's buried on the depth chart. Even if he makes the team as a 7th rounder, he's not going to see the field a whole lot behind Pittman, Jeremy Bernard, and DK Metcalf. So I 100% think the likelihood is Kaden Wetjen is going to see the field on special teams as long as he's healthy and has a much bigger chance of making an impact on the team just because he's going to have the ball in his hands where Eli isn't. So next question, how many touchdowns will Aaron Rodgers throw in 2026 on the farewell tour reunion with Mike McCarthy? Look, there's a lot of hate out there for Rodgers. I personally don't get it. His teammates love him. They say he's a great teammate. He holds people accountable, and rightfully so. All the great ones do. Ben Roethlisberger did it. Tom Brady certainly did it. So Aaron Rodgers holding guys accountable doesn't make him a bad teammate, a bad quarterback, a bad person. It makes him a Hall of Fame, Super Bowl winning former league MVP, and that's what he is. So Rodgers has thrown 20-plus touchdowns the last 2 years. He did it with the Jets, did it with the Steelers. But those were bad offenses. Last year we had DK Metcalf, and when he was out, who's on the field? Ben Skoranek, no offense. Like he's a great hard-nosed player, but he's not going to be a 1,000-yard receiver. So when DK Metcalf was out, there wasn't a lot of offensive weapons. We have Calvin Austin, who has trouble getting separation, wasn't used extremely well for his skill set. This year, the receiver corps is revamped. Jeremy Bernard, Michael Pittman, who's been productive on a largely bad Colts team until last year. And then, of course, DK Metcalf, who is just a physical specimen. Rodgers has the weapons, and not only that, he now has the scheme he's really, really intimately familiar with. And so if you add those things together, plus two really good running backs, Jaylen Warren, Rico Dowdle, when Rico is on a streak, look out. I think this guy might put up 1,000, and Jaylen Warren's going to take a little bit of a backseat in this offense. Still probably going to have 500 plus. But I think Rodgers, if you're a betting man or woman, throws over 30 touchdowns for the first time in years on his farewell tour because he has the weapons, he has a scheme, Darnell Washington, Pat Freiermuth, and some really big versatile receivers, 30 plus for Aaron Rodgers. Which brings us to Mason Rudolph. Will Mason Rudolph be on the team in 2026? Look, I think there is a chance the Steelers have 4 quarterbacks on the roster for the first time in a very long time. But I don't think it's likely. I think as long as Will Howard shows enough in the preseason, Will Howard will be the QB2 because Mike McCarthy has loved him from afar and now has that relationship with him, and they draft Drew Aller, of course, which my position has been next year there will be a battle for the QB1 spot between Aller and Howard, assuming nothing catastrophic happens, and they're like, wow, we were really wrong about this guy. I think Will Howard goes into the season as QB2. Mike McCarthy in minicamp, of course, was talking up Mason Rudolph, like, I didn't know he was that good, didn't know he could spin the ball like that. Mike McCarthy's doing his best sales pitch to other teams when it comes time for trades after preseason. That's what I firmly believe. So as long as Will Howard does his job, people are saying like, oh, Mason's the insurance policy. You're not going to win a Super Bowl with Mason Rudolph as quarterback. You have just as much likelihood to win a Super Bowl with a second-year inexperienced Will Howard as you do Mason Rudolph. Mason's had some really, really highs. Yeah, he took us into the playoffs, hit that hot streak, but we've also seen the lows. You saw it last year against the Bears. He was average at best. The long-term resume of Mason has been he's serviceable for a game or two. He can hit hot streaks. He throws a deep ball well. And when he's not afraid to throw the ball, he can sling it. But your likelihood of winning a Super Bowl with Mason is no better than it is with Will Howard. Now, that being said, if something were to happen to Will Howard, he's injured, and it's just Drew Aller as the backup, Mason will be on the team. And I said there's a small chance they'll keep all 4 if they're not quite comfortable yet. But I think Mason gets moved after preseason. Next, let's talk Acrisure Stadium, Heinz Field. Of course, they replaced some seats in the offseason, giving some black seats in the stands, but that's not what we're talking about today. We're talking about the grass. The Steelers ranked absolute last in field quality in the team survey, and so the Steelers once again are replacing the turf, the grass at Acrisure Stadium, and the report is if this field doesn't hold up, they may consider going to artificial turf, which the players will hate. Look, Mr. Rooney, Steelers staff, there are plenty of other teams. There are 32 teams in the league. Many of them use grass. I know you have Pitt that plays there, but find out what the best of the best are doing on their fields to have a serviceable playing field. Bring in whoever you need to, consult whoever you need to, get it right. Grass has less injuries. The players like it more. It's more absorbable for hits. Stick with grass. Just get it right. If this thing doesn't hold up, someone's got to be held accountable. Moving on. Next, I want to talk the biggest draft miss in the last 5 years for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So looking through the drafts, I'm thinking, man, what is the biggest draft miss? And a lot of people could say, hey, it's Christian Gonzalez. The Steelers drafted Broderick Jones, passed on Christian Gonzalez, who has been a really, really good corner for the Patriots. Imagine Christian Gonzalez opposite of Joey Porter, your secondary set. But that's not the biggest miss. The biggest miss of the Pittsburgh Steelers in the last 5 years was last year taking Derek Harmon and letting Jaxon freaking Dart sit on the board. Jaxon Dart showed everything he needed to last year on a Giants team that went through 2 head coaches and had offensive instability. He made them fun to watch when they were a bad football team. Jaxon Dart is the biggest miss in the last 5 years, and perhaps Mike Tomlin's biggest miss. I think the fear of repeating a Kenny Pickett-type draft pick with Jaxon Dart and missing on a franchise quarterback twice made Tomlin pass on Jaxon Dart. And it's ironic because he always says we don't live in our fears, but I think his fears controlled him to pass on Jaxon Dart, go with the safe pick in Derek Harmon, Let's bolster up the defense. Cam's going to be retiring. Let's get someone in the middle. You missed. Jaxon Dart is a very good quarterback with all the skill sets. Say what you want about his off-field, off-season antics, routines, political stance, whatever. Jaxon Dart is going to be in the league a very long time. He's going to be very fun to watch for a very long time, and he's going to win a lot of freaking football games, especially now with Harbaugh in New York. Jaxon Dart's the biggest miss of the Pittsburgh Steelers in the last 5 years, and maybe even longer. Mike Tomlin left the Steelers in a state of uncertainty. Now, to clarify, I think Will Howard has potential, but Jaxon Dart is right now, and he's ready to go. Biggest miss of the Tomlin regime and the Steelers draft in the last 5 years. He's blowing the draft last year and taking a safe defensive lineman over a quarterback who can win you a lot of games in Jaxon Dart. Hats off to Joe Starkey. He saw it. I saw it, but I wasn't making these videos last year. But Jaxon Dart, the biggest miss of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Let's go to my friend Ketch with the question of the day. What's the question, Ketch?
Okay, the question of the day is bench, start, cut. Hines Ward, Antonio Brown, and John Stallworth.
Ooh, start, bench, cut. Antonio Brown, John Stallworth, and Hines Ward. This is tough. Growing up, Hines Ward was my absolute favorite player. He's the most physical receiver to ever suit up in the NFL. Houshmandzadeh's up there, but we're not going to talk about that. Whew. But it's easy. Antonio Brown is the best football player I have ever seen. Period. The skill set, the work ethic, there is not another receiver like Antonio Brown. I know you're going to say Jerry Rice, Calvin Johnson. Save it. AB is the best route runner and best hands I've ever seen. The coordination, the work ethic, the dedication. I'm starting AB every single time. I'm going to bench Hines Ward because he is the most physical receiver of all time. John Stallworth, unfortunately, John Stallworth is a Hall of Famer. He's fantastic. The Steelers don't have 4 Super Bowls without him and Swanee and Brad, that whole team, whatever. But because it's a different era, different style of play, different game, and I did not personally watch him other than watching the tape and watching the old games from the 70s, I'm going to have to cut Stallworth, start AB, bench Hines Ward, cutting Stallworth. That's it for In the Slot. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time. In the Slot, all things Steelers. Here we go.